Okay, so today we have me. I'm supposed to talk about a little bit about science, and then we have Greg, and he's going to talk more about some of the practical stuff. How many of you are like really excited about science? Woo-hoo! Yeah. Really? I'm shocked. Very good. Well, basically what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about science so that we can change our expectations about what animals can and should be doing. And I'm going to talk, I'll tell you a little bit about how to teach cows to eat weeds as we go along, but really what I want this to be about is just kind of how animals learn what to eat so that we can change our expectations, okay? So, we'll start here. So basically what he's saying is, if we have expectations of a person, they can do more. So a lot of people who have worked with cows have particular ideas about what they can and should be doing. And what I've found is that we don't have high enough expectations. I've learned a lot about cows and what they can and should be doing for us, and it's all based in science. Someone opened my mind with a little bit of science, and that's when I started to think about, oh, well, it's not just goats that could eat weeds, it could be cows, it could be any kind of livestock at all. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. I'm going to basically talk about cows, but this fits for people and llamas and sheep and any kind of animal. You can even use children. Children fit here too, okay? So basically, all creatures learn what to eat, and then they choose what to eat based on their own body's needs. And the last part of this is that weeds are very nutritious. In fact, all kinds of forages that you don't think cows eat are very nutritious, and they can eat them. So let's start here with how cows learn what to eat. What we know first is that a cow eats what her mom eats, or basically any animal eats what her mom ate, okay? So one of my favorite experiments was they have 4 different goat does, and each of them has a little bit different diet. And they put all of these does on one island where all of those foods exist, and then they start breeding these animals, okay? So all of these goats, they eat what their mom eats, but they eat a little bit of what they see their fellow animals eating. And then as the generations go down, their diets become closer and closer together, okay? So that all of these goats, the kid goats, have learned from their fellow kids, but if you take this goat kid over here, you can actually trace her back to her great grandmother goat, because she still has a highest preference for the foods that doe ate, okay? But what I want you to see is how this works in practice, okay? Oh, God. Okay, so what's happening here is these ewes and their lambs are eating Russian olive. And the mother has been averted to carrageenan, which is this other weed over here. So what you can see is that these ewes and their lambs are eating the same thing as their mom eats. Okay, so now we put the lambs in by themselves, and we're going to see what they eat. And what happens is they go straight over to the food that their mothers ate, and they just eat it. They don't even check out the other thing, okay? They don't even think of it as food. Okay, so now we have another group of ewes. They have been averted to Russian olive. Basically, we gave them something that made them feel sick whenever they ate Russian olive, so they wouldn't eat it. And so they're eating the carrageenan instead, and you can see that their lambs are eating it with them. And then when we put just the lambs in, again, they just ignore the Russian olive and they go over and they eat the carrageenan, just like their mothers did. So now what we do is we put all of the lambs in together, and we're going to see which ones they're going to go eat. So the lambs that their mothers ate carrageenan, they're marked with C's. So you can see them. The carrageenan is on the right, or yeah, your left-hand side. And you can see them separating into groups, but in the process they actually try some of the other food because they see the other animal eating it and they're like, okay. But you can start to see them separate out. And then there's that one over there. He may have eaten too much at some point. And he's just like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do because I got a little sick the other day and I'm not going to eat anything. Okay? So this is basically just a demonstration of something that we've actually seen. You've seen it happen, right? Where a calf learns from her mother, or a kid learns from his mom. Things like that. But I don't think we actually paid attention to how strong it is. So that makes sense to you? Okay, so that's the first way that animals learn. And then they choose what to eat based on what their bodies need. And all of our bodies do this. Cows aren't particular to this, but this is how I learned about it. So this is the picture that basically changed my life. Can you see what that steer is eating? It's a rabbit, okay? So here's how I learned about this. I was at Utah State University. I was working for the Bureau of Land Management, and I often had to travel for part of my work. So I was auditing this course by a fellow named Fred Provenza, and it was called Plant Herbivore Interactions. And some days I would be able to stay for the whole class. Some days I'd have to leave. So Fred pops this picture up, and I have to leave. And I'm gone for a whole week. And every night, you know how you lay in bed and you think about things? Well, every night I would lay in bed and I'd think about this steer. And I'd think, you know, that's pretty terrifying. Like, how does a steer catch a rabbit? You know, can you imagine catching them out of their burrows? So when I got back to Utah, I went to Fred's office and I said, can you please tell me what the rest of this story is? Because, you know, it's kind of scary if you think about steers suddenly becoming carnivores. What if there were kids out there? So what this steer is part of a research project in the Netherlands, and they were trying to see what the effects are of animals grazing on phosphorus deficient soils. So that's why this guy looks all ratty. See, his hair is curly and he looks bad. He's just not in good shape. So one day they were watching the herd, and they noticed that one of them had found a dead rabbit. It was dead, so don't worry about things. And it was eating this dead rabbit. And they got curious, and they're like, okay, they threw other dead rabbits into the pasture to see what would happen. And pretty soon the whole herd is eating dead rabbits. So why are they eating dead rabbits? And you know the answer. You do know the answer. Pardon? They needed the phosphorus. There's phosphorus in the bones. And you've seen animals do this anyway because they're looking for whatever they need. So you've seen them eat bones and other things, maybe eat dirt even. This is how they do it, okay? So here's how it works. Here you have the animal. There's his rumen and his brain. Takes a bite of the rabbit. The rabbit goes down into its rumen or whatever it's eating. Then there are nerves that carry information about the smell and taste of the food, and they go up to the brain. And then there are nerves that go from the rumen to the brain, and they carry information about the food's nutritional value, okay? So if the brain basically takes the information about the food's flavor and smell and combines that with the nutrition that the animal is getting. So if it's getting good nutritional value from that, that food will taste good. But if the food is high in toxins or doesn't provide for its needs, that food will taste bad, okay? So foods don't taste inherently good or bad. They taste the way they taste based on the nutritional value and what your body needs. And this works for all creatures, okay? It's not that cows are so particularly smart. Oops. I'm having lots of technical difficulties today. Sorry about that. In case you wanted to see it again, here's how it works. Tastes good. Tastes bad. Okay, so basically, because the animal is choosing what to eat based on what its nutritional needs are, those kinds of needs change over time. So if you're a cow and you're pregnant, you're going to need different things than if you are a calf and you're growing at a particular rate. Does this make sense? It kind of goes with all of that information that we have about nutritional needs for animals. But another really cool thing that the animals do is that if they've had enough protein, they'll actually mix their own diets. So they've actually done experiments where they preload the animal with a lot of protein by, gavaging them, sticking it into their rumen, and then seeing what they'll choose, and they'll go and choose energy or roughage to offset that, okay? I've even done this to myself by eating way too much candy on a road trip. And when we finally arrived, I was like so high on sugar that I ran into this place and they were having a little reception for us, and I ate all the cheese and meat I could find because I had to balance out that kind of thing. You can try this with kids. Give them candy all day long, and then at the end of the day say, would you like more candy or would you like a hot dog? They will choose the hot dog. But really, you may not want to try this at home. So what we know in general is that nutrients tend to increase the amount of a food that an animal will eat. And I'm going to give this one more shot here, because really, I don't want to have to narrate all of these.
Battery 100%.
Is it connected to Kathy's iMac? Well, if not, we'll just go for it. Okay. What we've got here are two groups of sheep, and they're both getting their first meal of the morning, and it's straw. And straw is really low in nutritional value. There is something there, but it's pretty low. So you have one group, and they're checking out their straw, and they're not really eating a whole lot. But you have this group, and they're eating a whole lot of it. And the reason that they're eating so much is that earlier in the week, every time these animals were given straw, they were also gavaged with a starch solution, which mimicked nutritional value, okay? So they think straw is really good. And meanwhile, these guys are like, really? Really? This is what we're getting today? And these guys just eating away. And these guys are checking them out. Like, what the heck? What are you eating over there? This is another way you see how animals learn what to eat as well. Okay? So they're just going to lay down, say, we're not getting any dinner, any breakfast this morning. And these guys, they're finishing off their straw. And in fact, this group will always eat straw even after you quit giving them that nutritional feedback, because it's what they've learned at a young age. So here's our moral. Okay? Is this making sense for you? Okay. I just want you to be with me here. Okay, the other thing we know is that toxins tend to decrease the amount that an animal will eat, okay? So they ran some experiments. That's Fred Provenza right there. He's the fellow that kind of headed up all of this research at Utah State University. And what they showed is, okay, here's how much oats lambs will eat, just oats in general. And then they added this stuff called lithium chloride. So on that green line there, you're seeing they added a little bit of lithium chloride. And what that is, it tastes like salt, but it actually causes nausea. So when they first got it, they're like, oh man, maybe we'll eat a little bit less of that. And then when they added even more, they ate even less, okay? they kept on eating it because it still had nutritional value for them, but they just ate less. So the good news is that when you put animals in pasture, if they encounter something with toxins and they have alternatives, they're just going to eat less of the things with toxins. They'll still eat a little bit, but probably not enough to be deadly. Okay? So we're going to show you a little demonstration of that as well. So you can see it in practice. It's always nice to see the animals doing it for us. Okay, so these guys are eating Russian olive. First meal of the day. They really like it. Okay, but then we dose them with lithium chloride right after they eat it. And this is what they feel like about it now the next day. So it's really their first meal of the day. If they were going to eat it, they probably would be rushing over, but they're like, nah, we had a bad experience. And these guys, they go over and they test it, they sniff it, they're looking it over, but they're really not eating anything. They're just checking it out. And that guy says, enough. It's nothing good I can eat. So he gives up. Okay, so these guys, they're eating carrageenan. And these are just shrubs that were in the demonstration area where the animals are being kept. It's nothing special. And you can see they like it a lot. They're really eating it. And then we dosed them with lithium chloride. And this is how they feel about it the next day. And again, they're just really not interested. And so what you're seeing here is how powerful that, that feedback is and how it actually works. And they're not making, it's not like they're making conscious decisions necessarily. Okay, so now we have all of the lambs. And the ones with C's on their backs, they're the ones that are supposed to eat this darker green stuff, the carrageenan, and the other ones should eat the Russian olive. So they're just kind of, we're going to see if they separate out into groups based on what they should be eating. And it kind of looks like they're separating out. There's that one in the back. It got extra lithium chloride, so it's really not feeling so hot. And this is my friend Beth. She's coming in to say, wouldn't you like to eat? And sure enough, here it comes. So what you can see is once they've had experience, they separate out pretty quickly, a lot more quickly than the lambs did who had just learned from their mothers. So first you learn from your mom, and then you're going to learn from your own experience. Okay? You're with me? Okay. The last part of this is weeds and how nutritious they are. And so I just want you to see a little bit about what I've learned about weeds over the course of about 15 years now. So one day I went to a conference like this, and there was a guy, he was trying to sell his feed supplement to everybody in the audience. And he said, this feed supplement is 16% protein, and that means that if your animals eat it, they will gain 2.2 pounds per day on average in pasture. And I thought this was really exciting, not because I wanted to buy his feed supplement, but because Canada thistle runs 16 to 21% protein, okay? So what I'm going to show you here are all kinds of plants that you might call weeds, but that are really nutritious and that do all of these same things. Here's some more. Some of these are my favorite pasture plants. Here's some more. Now that cocklebur, you can't graze it when it's tiny. You have to let it grow up a little bit because when it's tiny, it'll poison your animals. So There are still some cautions here. And here's some more. And basically, what I've found is that if it's green and growing, it's nutritious. And if it's a forb and not a grass, it's probably more nutritious than a grass because it's more digestible. There's more leaf to stem. Okay, does that make sense?
What
So,
about with the flower on it?
Pardon?
What about when the flower, when it's in full flower?
When it's the closer it gets to going to seed, the less nutritious it is. So when the flowers are on, it's starting to drop. But I've found that even with flower on, it's not dropping that rapidly. So, but once it goes to seed and it really starts to mature, just like grasses, the nutritional value really drops. And at that point, the animals are a lot less likely to eat it. And that would make sense, right? They're going to eat it when it's really good, and when it becomes toothpicks, nobody's going to eat it. Okay? So, so it turns out that all your brushy species, they run about 12 to 15% protein. So it's a little bit lower than the other weeds because there's less digestible stuff. There's more of those ticks that aren't quite as edible, but they're still really high in nutritional value. So this is what I found out about what animals do with brush. People often ask me, like with a goat, how big a twig will they bite off? Well, about this big. Turns out cows bite off that much too.
Uh-huh.
And look at this.
And this is coyote bush, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and the cool thing about what they're doing here is they are so big that they're just like mashing it down. Just busted this right down. And that's the thing. If you're going to use animals for big brush clearing, I would vote for cows because their bodies are so big. And you know, having worked with goats, I know exactly what a goat can do. And they can't do this. They don't do this. I mean, they'll bend them down and chew them off, but man, you want to clear a place. Look at this. Look what they're doing. I'm just amazed. I love cows. So the reason I loved cows so much at that stage was that I had spent a 7-year project of working with goats to reduce fire danger and building fire breaks and all that kind of stuff. And it was painful because I was always putting fence back up or chasing animals all over the place. And even though they did good work, they were really a pain in the butt. But cows are cooperative and they stay in place and they're kind and they're not smarter than me. So this is what I did with this information. Oh, look at that bite. What do cows eat?
Corn, grass, and weeds.
It's easy.
Cows eat weeds.
Cows eat weeds.
This is pretty easy. This is fun.
What do cows eat?
Cows eat weeds.
amazing?
That's unbelievable. I was tickled.
It was easy.
It was very
You
easy.
can do it.
What do cows eat? Okay, so that was, once I saw all the science, that's what I thought we should do with it. Other things we might do, we could help animals figure out how to eat new foods when they arrive in new locations, like maybe before they get there, introduce them to what they're going to eat. I've done that with goats quite a bit. We can manage fire grazing with danger, and it doesn't have to be goats, and it doesn't have to be sheep. It can be cows, and they'll be really effective at it. Or we can just graze our pastures as they are and have 43% more forage and have fewer costs associated with weed control. Just a few thoughts. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Here's the end of my presentation. So if we have different expectations of our cows, we can expand our minds. They can expand our minds. If we have different expectations of our pastures, we can expand our forage base. And that's kind of, as we're talking about our farms, our future, that's what I'm hoping that we'll think about down the road, that we'll let ourselves expand a little bit and think about things in new ways. Thank you.